What's going on YouTube? Back in the garage. In today's video we're going to be starting a build series on rebuilding the motor in my Honda Grom. I originally wasn't going to do a rebuild, but unfortunately I snapped the bolt in the gear cam selecting gear the gear selecting cam. Yeah, that's it. Gear selecting cam. When I was replacing the gear selecting cam plate, so it makes it easier to find neutrals, a modified plate. You'll eventually see that. But yeah, I was in the middle of doing an install video on multiple parts, like a Kataco high output oil pump that was modified for wheelies, that selecting plate, and upgrading the clutch pressure plate, so I'm utilizing all 6 holes. I didn't get that far because I snapped the bolt off into that cam. I tried to drill it and use the easy out to get it out, but it wasn't coming out. So in turn I got to rip apart the whole motor and replace that part. So I've never done this before, so this is going to be a learning curve. I've never ripped apart a whole ground motor before. I'm sure it's not going to be hard. Seems to be pretty easy what all I've seen online so far. So I'm not going to be intimidated. It's better than buying another motor for, you spend all the way up $1,000 to all the way up to $2,000 for just a stock Grom motor. And mine has a big bore kit on it, all kinds of stuff on it, so I don't want to go that route. I'd rather just rebuild what I have. When I'm in the process of rebuilding the Grom motor, I'm going to be replacing also the crank with the rod, since I've been beating the crap out of this Grom ever since I've had it, so I'm sure it's due for, you know, just this type of rebuild. It won't hurt, put it that way. So yeah, let's just jump right into it. I'm going to first show you the piece that snapped off. Alright, the piece that snapped off goes right here. There's normally it's basically like a plate that goes onto this cam right here for selecting your gears, and it's notched, so it rides on this wheel right here, and in turn it helps you indicate which gear you're in, stuff like that. And I was putting it in a modified one, and neutral is more pronounced, I guess, easier to find. And when I went to go install it, the bolt snapped off. I already had a thread locker on. I tried to drill and use the easy out, but the easy out ended up snapping in it, so in turn there's no way of me getting that out. So I mean, I could try to weld a nut on it and maybe back it out, but chances are it's not gonna happen. So I'm just gonna pull the motor out and just do a whole rebuild to it. Like I said before, you don't have to take the side cover off and all the components to pull the motor out. It's just the way that things are going for me, unfortunately. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the exhaust off the motor, and that's going to allow me to drain the oil out of the motor through the side cover and the oil drain plug when I go to stand the Grom back up. After that, then I can start disconnecting all the wires and stuff like that, and start unbolting the motor from the frame. The bolt or the nuts for your exhaust right here are 12mm. Already have these broken loose. Pull these off. Whenever, like I said, I've never done pulled the motor out of Grom before. It doesn't look hard, but at the same time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just keep everything organized as much as I possibly can, so I know where all my bolts go. Somebody's getting it, but
Just makes things easier, and when I go reassemble, I know where everything goes. And next bolt will be the one underneath. It's also 12 millimeter. Really stinks that I have to pull the motor out of this. I was really looking forward to just riding it. Next is going to be the bolt that back here. So again, it was 12 millimeter, 12 millimeter, 12 millimeter. Now, you might not have the same setup back here. Heck, you might not even have a bottom exit exhaust. It might be a stock one, which I don't remember which direction they go, but I've had this on here for so long I can't remember. But my setup, I have an Allen key or Allen wrench bolt. Alright, the bolt under here is actually welded to the frame, so you don't have to hold that. Or a nut, I should say. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the bolts back in the holes so I don't lose them and I know where they go. Loosely, I'm not going to tighten them down or anything like that. Set my exhaust off to the side. Alright, at this point I'm going to remove my tools and I'm going to drain the oil out. Alright, before I stand the bike up to drain the oil out, I'm going to remove these, what are these called? These are dolly pins. Kind of like guide pins on the side of the cover. Remove those. Basically, I'm going to remove anything that will just fall out. Get rid of this gasket. I remove those two dolly pins, one right here and one right here. Next, looks like these two collars. There'll be the clutch shaft, or yeah, the shaft for the clutch. They will slide right off. Now I take pictures of all this stuff, so I remember. So if I have a question on how it goes back together, I can just refer to the picture. And this gear right here, that goes behind the oil spinner, and that has a key. Make sure you grab that. Anything else? Okay, behind that gear is another collar. Set that appropriately in my box here. There'll be the thin collar, or thinner collar will go behind the gear of the, how that comes out too, of the oil spinner. Then you got another thin gear behind that. Doesn't look like anything else wants to slide off. Alright, so now I'm going to take my old fucking screen. Let's take that out too. And remove my drain plug. There's also two dolly pins for your oil pump. I'm going to take those out too. They look like they're the same exact size as the ones that on the casing, so this might be a little bit bugger. Gotcha. But to be on the safe side, I'm gonna put them with the oil pump. Alright, anything else? Doesn't look like anything else wants to fall out. Alright, I'll wipe off my hands and I can stand the motor up. Alright, so I drained the oil out. I put the bike up on rear sway arm stand. It'll just make things easier for me to work on, so I'm not constantly bent down real far. You don't necessarily need to put it up on a stand like that. I do recommend draining all your oil. Like I said before, you don't have to take all this whole side cover off to pull the motor out. My next step is going to be start undoing whatever wires are running to the motor themselves. So I'm going to start on this side, then I'm going to work my way over to the other side. Alright, I undid the spark plug wire and your stock O2 sensor wire. Just unplug. You got to take this shield off right here to get your O2 sensor. Just unplugs from the boot, kind of like the spark plug wire. Next, I'm going to take hopefully a 10mm ratchet wrench and undo the bolt for the throttle body. It was a 10mm. After I get this bolt out, I'm going to go over to the other side of the bike. I might not take this bolt completely out. I might have it almost out. So right when I'm about to drop the motor out, I can take it completely out. I just don't want bolts lying everywhere. Then I'll forget where they go. Alright, now I am on the left side of the bike, and I can do, this might be the O2 sensor. The other sensor might be temperature sensor. I can't remember which one's which, but this does look like a O2 sensor here, but still I need to undo it. This is casing, 8mm. Let's undo that. Now I gotta be careful not to drop a bolt to my pan here while it's draining. Okay. This is just gonna be a plug. Just push the little tab here and it unplugs. I'm going to put this bolt back in its hole, and looks like these wires just pull out of their clips, which is nice. I don't have to unbolt them. And then there's another 10mm up here. Undo that for the throttle body. Now I'm going to take the cover off of the sprocket for the motor, the small sprocket. Take that cover. Around here somewhere. Two bolts, 8mm bolts. There's a clip up here that retains two wires. I need to undo that first. That has like teeth on it. It should just come right off. Should pop right off. Slide the wires out. It's actually 3 wires. Okay, I can remove this case here and put that away. Looks like there used to be a neutral safety switch. I bought this Grom used, so my first guy I had to fix a bunch of stuff. But this looks like a neutral safety switch wire. I don't know how that was plugged in, but you just have to unplug it. It's held in by 2 8mm bolts right here, and it looks like some kind of clip down here So undo these 2 8s, undo the bracket, and I take this whole motor apart. So loosely, and that just comes out. I believe there was a plug on the bottom of this. I'm not sure. Again, I bought this motor or this bike used, so I'm not sure if that was a neutral safety switch. I think it was. That's undone. Now, alright, now that I got this wire unbolted from the 2 8s on the side of the motor here, this wire here, I believe that's going to your O2 sensor, that's undone. It's just going to be dangling here. Looks like there's a sensor here and a wire for your, I forget what it's called, charges, the rectifier? No. It's a coil in here, magnet coil in here that charges your battery. Wire for that, and another sensor right here, which I have no idea what it is. Looks like I'm going to have to take this side plastic cover off. I'm going to just unclip these wires right here. From where there should be a plug somewhere in this location that I can unplug them all. Pull the seat off. Start taking this side cover off here. Majority of it should come off with a Phillips head screwdriver. Again, I'm going to put them right back in the hole that they came out of. You don't necessarily have to with the covers, but that's just how I do it. I've been doing it. I just think it looks nicer when you take the bolt out and you put it exactly where the factory put it. Just this should be a screw here. And push and a screw here. Again, I'm going to put the screws right back in where I took them out. Let's see if I can trace these wires and find the plug for it. Plug all these wires and it should take care of this side. Let's double check. Just be careful when you're unplugging these, so you don't rip any of them apart. Okay, looks like they're all undone. Now, I'm going to unbolt the sprocket. Just one. This bolt. Now when you're taking off your sprocket, it's a lot easier than what I just went through, because I can put it in gear and it locks the wheel or locks the sprocket, and you can do it with a ratchet. And when you undo your two number 10s, this plate right here has grooves. You just have to spin it a little bit and it'll slide through the grooves and it'll come right off. Set that aside and pull the sprocket off and turn, drops the chain away from the motor. I'm going to leave that sprocket off. And I'm just going to put my number 10s back in the sprocket, set that aside, because I'm going to have to keep that off for when I split the casing. And yes, this is an upgraded front sprocket. It is, I don't remember what tooth it is. Should say 13 tooth? Yeah, it's a 13 tooth front sprocket I'm running. I don't remember what the back one is. I will be going over that later in some other video because I gotta do some work to the rear wheel. I'm gonna set this bushing aside. Or that. I'm gonna set that sprocket aside, and now need to undo the linkage for the shifter. That looks like it's a number 10. I was thinking about doing the shifter mod to this, where I eliminate this whole linkage, and you just basically put a dirt bike shifter on it. I don't remember which one you use. I might actually do that. I think that's pretty trick. Should slide right off. Should. Things moving. That's fine. There we go. This bolt back in. So lose it. Now that rod that pulled the shifter off, it should pull right through the motor. It should. Let me check. Yeah, that. After you get your shifter off, you can pull. I'll show you. You get the shifter off, now you can pull this assembly completely out. Alright, now that I'm over here, I'm going to, there's two number 10s, or yeah, 10 millimeters, one with a ground on it, and one without a ground, to pull the starter out. Unbolt that. I probably could have just unplugged the starter and everything. Probably be easier, but I don't know. Figure I'll just do it this way. There's a, looks like a vacuum vent hose. I'll undo that. Those pliers. Yank it right off. I just tap on the starter from the other side, and she just comes right out. The starter also has an O-ring on it. I'm going to have to inspect that. For the time being, I'm just going to set that right here. Actually, I'll put those bolts back in. Then set the starter back up. Those two 10s were the same size. I might actually even upgrade the starter. Since I have a cam in, I put a cam when I did the big bore. In turn, it eliminates the compression valve on the cam. So sometimes you have to bump the starter a few times with the button in order for it to actually spin the motor, because it builds compression and the starter's not strong enough to turn the motor. But they do make starters that are a little stronger, and you won't have to do that. You just hold the button down. But no, we'll see. I'm sure if I don't change it out to a stronger starter, I'll eventually just burn it out from having it lock up from the compression. Looks like 3 14mm bolts, and the motor should come right out. I'm going to, how do I want to do this? I think I'm going to take the top one out first, this one out second, leave the bolts in, just the nuts off so it's nice and loose, then loosen the bottom one here. Okay, I got the 3 14mm nuts off the bolts holding the motor in. Let me tell you, where a little Chinaman put those in, he was strong. Those suckers were tight. So at this point now, it looks like I'm going to have to take the one bolt out of the rear set on the other side so I can spin it a little bit so I can get this bottom bolt completely out. The other two, they'll just slide right out. Let me show you. Yeah. So the bottom bolt is right back here, and in order to slide it out, it'll hit this rear set. So I gotta undo the bolt right here to be able to spin the rear set just a little bit so I can slide the bolt through. Alright, so to get this bolt completely out, what I did was I undid the 12mm down here, loosened the 14, and it's a 19 nut on the other side, and I didn't pull this one completely out because that attaches to your swing arm. Just got enough slack that I can pull this arm forward and push it all the way back, and this will slide right out. I probably could have spun the rear set the other direction, but right now that my stand is blocking me, so I'm not able to do that. Got this bolt out. Now pull this one out. And I think there's only one bolt left holding it in. Alright, so I put a jack under the motor. I jacked it up just so I saw it slightly move. Just slightly. I have a piece of wood under it. You don't want to go metal on metal when you're jacking up the motor. It's just not a good thing. Could possibly screw things up. This bolt just slides right out now. Set that aside. Now, if I am correct, when I lower this jack, the motor should just drop right out. Let's see. Good. Got this little piece for the throttle body with the O-rings. Make sure I don't lose that. Matter of fact, what I'll do is I'll put those bolts right into it, so I'm losing right back into the head. I don't lose that piece for the throttle body. It's like a throttle body spacer. Looks like she's just ready to come out now. Alright, there she is. She's good. Position. Alright, she's out. Pretty easy. Alright YouTube, that's going to wrap it up for this video of rebuilding the Honda Grom motor. This is part 1. This is going to be a build series. Part 2 will be out shortly, so please like and subscribe. I greatly appreciate it. And don't forget to hit that notification button, and I'll notify you and let you know when part 2, part 3, maybe even part 4 comes out. We'll see. Alright, until next time, take it easy.